Okay, you're listening to Hall Monitor on WPPM 106.5 in Philadelphia, on Comcast Channel 66, and streaming live at phillycam.org. You can find us on Twitter at Hall Monitor WPPM, on our website www.hallmonitor.org, or on Facebook at PHM WPPM. Today on the program, we'll be joined by Councilmember Anthony Phillips. We'll have the continuation of our interview with Councilmember David O. And our very own Denise Clay Murray will give us a preview of her weekly column that will be out in the Hall Monitor Weekly Dispatch this Friday. Denise, how are you?
I'm good, Larry. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you. It's a busy week for everybody, I think, week before the
Yes, it
holiday.
is.
But we're
Yeah.
glad everybody joined us.
As we speak, Jim Gardner, the six ABC legend that has anchored Action News since both of us were like alive, is anchoring his final newscast. So, to the folks at 6ABC, to Jim Gardner, thank you for your service. And hopefully you can now move closer to sleeping in because you don't have to be so close to our world anymore.
Well, and tonight on the show, there we go. I'm unmuted. Okay. So tonight on the show, we have our interview that we did yesterday with Councilmember Anthony Phillips. So here's that interview. With Phillips, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Lawrence, for having me.
All right, so tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your background?
Well, I'm a product of a single parent. My mother was the primary parent of myself and my sister. We grew up in North Philadelphia before moving to the 19150 section of Mount Airy, which is known as East Mount Airy. My grandmother was my second parent, and both of them were single parents in more ways than one, because even though my grandfather was in my grandmother's life, my grandmother raised six children for the most part on her own. And both my mother and my grandmother were resilient. They were also individuals who were very sacrificial. It is a story that you can hear among many African-American households of being a part of a single parent household raised by women raising men. And what I learned the most from them is about the importance of giving, because they never were about themselves. They never wanted to be spotlighted. They were always about serving their children. And so as a result, having grown up and witnessed them, I believe that my decision to work in youth development catapulted from working with them. For the past decade, I've been working as a youth development specialist, as an executive in nonprofit, particularly helping Black and Latino students access top colleges and universities. So we started at the age of 14, I started an organization called Youth Action. And Youth Action funds and invests in students to become leaders in their communities, as well as to organize social action projects in their communities. So I have a background in teaching young people the importance of listening to their neighbors, and individuals throughout their community, and then creating projects that are reflective of what the community cares about. And that was the work that I did. I was since 14. It started off as me as a teenager organizing projects on my own in the community, and then somehow the organization evolved into a stronger nonprofit where we train young people to do that. And I did that for 20 years, volunteer. Never took a penny from the organization, any benefits, no reimbursements. It was truly an organization that was from my heart. I used to travel from graduate school, college and so forth, to work with the students in Philadelphia on the weekends, every day, every weekend for the most part. And so I found my heart in youth development because of youth action. Therefore, I decided that I wanted to, make a dedication to my life in youth development. And so I became during graduate school, I was a literacy tutor for an agency in Connecticut. I also was a college access director for an agency in Massachusetts. Philadelphia, I served as a work ready program coordinator and leader for a period of time. And then I worked as an educator, teaching college and career readiness. And then most recently, I've been the director of pre-college programs for Teen Sharp, helping Black and Latino students go to college debt-free and ultimately attend selective colleges and become great professionals after they graduate from college. So my work has touched thousands of young people. It's really been a science in terms of work that I've done, and in terms of really helping them become transformational in terms of their leadership and their character and also their professional abilities. And I love it. I learned the importance of, if you want to see young people transformed in their lives, you have to work 24/7, more so day and night. And I take the same type of mentality around that when it comes to working in the city. If you want to see our city change, it's going to be not just me speaking from a microphone or speaking from City Hall. I have to be really involved with our neighbors and making a difference in the community.
So what made you think that City Council could be a place where you could make this kind of change?
Well, God is good. And I say that wholeheartedly because I had a really strong career in youth development. I was going to continue to grow in it and probably rise in the ranks when it comes to being a youth development specialist in the city of Philadelphia. What happened is that my councilwoman, Sherelle Parker, ultimately decided that she was going to run for mayor of Philadelphia. And I was also a committee person in the area in which she served. She knew a little bit about the work that I do. She actually knew a lot. And she also understood, where my attention was in terms of like the neighborhood. I had a decent understanding of we need to have excellence in our neighborhood. And so when she decided to run for mayor of Philadelphia, I was excited. I said, great, excellent. This is good. Want to be with you. But then when I learned that, there was going to be this position open for city council, I got into deep reflection mode and thought about, what type of person would I want to represent, our community in this role. And I ultimately said that, after, seeking, after her, particularly one first being the encouraging person in my life to make that happen, after many months, she said, it's your decision. And I said, I will make that decision. I spoke to some young people and family, and ultimately they said, Anthony, you've been speaking to youth all your life about civic engagement and being excellent in the community and organizing things that make a difference in people's lives. You would be, a lot of the young people says that you would be in more ways of a coward if you didn't try to take this on. And I believe that city council, when I thought about it, I said, our Philadelphia City Council has a lot of decent people on council, but I feel like at the time, I thought I would bring a unique perspective to what we do in city council. And I see our city as like a board. And so what I was bringing is not only the youth development specialist and person who could champion young people based off of my experience, but I was hoping that what I could bring is this concept of, having been a part of a very small agency, neighborhood organizations, and connected to organized people who are often doing excellent work in the community that is not often spotlighted, but the work is transformative. I believe that I had the ability to be able to say, okay, our city has tons of people who are doing great work, yet our city needs to have those people on city council who understand what transformative work looks like from a neighborhood level. And I ultimately said, and I thought that my skill sets, such as knowing how to listen, knowing how to facilitate, knowing how to collaborate, and ultimately my deep understanding of what quality service looks like and transformative service looks like would be something that I could bring to city council as much as my grassroots, like, hey, knowing how to build things from scratch and make them superb. I thought that was something that I could really bring beyond what we've had in terms of a lot of people from the government spectrum. So that's why I say city council is going to be an influential space for me to show neighbors what they really want in this new generation of council is this connectedness to their council member, someone who is on top of things, someone who is willing to roll up their sleeves and get dirty and change things with them, and not be afraid to advocate for certain changes and actually know how to create a system to get things done. And I said, okay, Anthony knows how to create systems that are going to be transformational. And so here I am, city council.
It's really interesting because if I'm understanding this correctly, your political experience had been as a committee member.
Yes.
And nothing else. That was it, right?
That's it.
and it's interesting because your three colleagues with whom you entered council all have political experience, and you're in a way an outsider. And I mean that in a good way, because it provides.
Yeah, a huge outsider. Many people, seek maybe people seek this office, and for me, and it's been their greatest dream, and I respect that. Being in politics, being in government is your greatest aspiration. What I sought after in my life was just to be a servant. I wanted to be a very strong quality servant. Did I know city council was going to be on that radar? No. And that's why I say God is really good, because, I come into city council with the mindset of like, this is an opportunity to use the position, not as a tool for power or to create it in a way that's like, it's about, Anthony Phillips decided to be the position of city council. It's a way to use the position to be influential in a positive way for our community. So, for example, I recognize that people are excited to have individuals who are from city council well connected to their community. For, in particular, let's say, for instance, our schools. A person from city council could potentially rally neighbors and parents and create systems that will help motivate and inspire our neighbors to organize transformational items for our schools, such as committees, potentially that could, like, for example, bring mentorship to the school, as well as bring resources to the school, or find ways to help our children understand different careers that they can have post their time in school, right? And also clean up and do other beautification projects. People want to be involved in Philadelphia schools. They just need someone who wants to bring resources and to inspire them to do that. I always want to be involved. If there was a neighborhood initiative in which my elected official was like, hey, we need this to happen for our school, I would be involved. And I'm the person that's saying, hey, we're going to need, I'm the person that will most likely say in the next month or so, we're going to need 100 or so neighbors involved in being a mentor or a particular workforce development type of program, a facilitator for a few of our schools. So we're going to we need you all to go through the clearances so you can get an amazing, your amazing nonprofit involved in our schools. By the way, we have Jerry, we also have Jasmine, and we have Chantel. They're having a little trouble in our school. And what we know about what happened what happened with us is that we had a number of people pushing us and inspiring us as adults that helped us where we are today. And so what we're going to need is to have you, Ms. Johnson, you, Ms. Brown, to come in and serve as a mentor to them, because they're going to need your help to get through this life called school, because they're fighting. Some of them may be fighting, they may be carrying on in different unproductive ways, but they're great kids. They just need somebody to push them, because just like me, I was suspended from school 6 times. My mother was a single parent. When she passed away at the age of 21, my story of going to Bates College, going to Yale, and getting ready to finish a PhD from UMass Amherst, and even studying at Morehouse College in Atlanta, that doesn't happen with just one single parent, right? That happens with a multitude of folks from church community, from people who know you from your outside of your school community, neighborhood associations, as well as nonprofit organizations that really helped me grow. And so I recognize that if we want the best for our children, we have to have leaders who are willing to find public and private funding, as well as organize systems and protocols that are norms for us, so that our children can be excellent. Because we keep waiting for our Republican colleagues and the state house, as well as the federal government, to take care of our schools, we're going to have a laundry list of trouble in years to come. So again, I think our platform, even this idea of like the city council person, I'm going to be the person that's going to get in the city car, get in the city car and deliver mobile services to our area and people who can't get to our office. I'm going to be the person that's going to be in the squad car with the police officer, of identifying and figuring out where are the hotspots in our district, so that we can mobilize our neighbors as well as our police officers to look out for each other and make sure that this is not happening. I'm going to be a hands-on person that we're going to create organizations and systems block by block where people understand how their government works, but not most importantly, how their government best serves them. There's plenty of services that our government provides that people are not aware of. And I think as our job is in the city is to get beyond the office and make time so we can actually organize our block by block by block norms that we see in suburban neighborhoods, such as like, they know about their township services. They know, when mentorship is happening and what kids are in the neighborhood, how they should look out for them. They know about how to do activities for children and seniors. They know how to do public safety norms. Like when something's happening, there's an email that goes out. There's a phone call that goes out, a text message. They're looking out. There's lighting programs. There's all types of things that are happening because there's a village sometimes in those neighborhoods that like, we got y'all, we got you. And our neighbors want to be connected. We just got to help them, become connected. And that starts with me and, other leaders who are in the city of Philadelphia.
So, not really having considered taking on this role until Councilmember Parker resigned.
Yeah.
This is the kind of thing where, for city council, like you had said, some people aspire to this. They spend a lot of time running for the office, preparing for the office. You had this very truncated period in which to do so. Yeah. How do you prepare to be a city council member?
You know what? The great thing about me in terms of preparation is that I come from a entrepreneurial background. I'm used to starting from scratch and building something up. So the best way to prepare for city council, I tell people, you can be a person who, may have a background as a CEO, which is actually an excellent background to have when you're trying to run a large entity. And I have a background in leadership too. You can also have a background in government, right? You can also have a background in other, leadership capacities that have served people. However, I think the best people, the best preparation and the best way you'll have for this role is that if you have a strong background in volunteerism, because here's why. When I say volunteerism, it's not like, okay, the occasional soup kitchen that you pick something up and you did something with, or something occasional, student that you helped out with. When I say volunteerism, I mean something that you have consistently done for an extended period of time, and you have seen growth and change of the people that you served as a result of your service. And I think, now here's why, because the best people that I believe that represent our city in this role are individuals that will work night and day and night, excuse me, to be there for their neighbors. And that's the best preparation that you can have for a role like this. Because honestly, I do think some of the qualifications should be, you should have a level of competence, which is really important. You should definitely have a level of leadership where you've governed and you've led things. You should have a subject matter expertise. But I think the quality of who your person is connected to what you have done in terms of service when there's no cameras and there's no particular spotlight, on you. You're just doing it because it's out of your heart. Because there's many things that you're going to do in this role that are not going to be seen. It's not often it needs to be seen, but it's important that you get it done because you are the ultimate servant of your neighborhood. And for me, I want to be known more so not as the councilman. I want to be known as Anthony, the servant of our neighborhood, who has found ways not just for him to serve, but to engage and inspire other people to serve at a higher level too. And I know a lot of people have talked about engaging their neighbors and getting involved with the service endeavor. But I tell you, a lot of times the reason why this doesn't happen as frequently is because you got to have this mindset that you're going to work 24/7 to get to every area, block, to make those things happen. If you don't have that mindset or that background of doing that before you came to city council, you're not suddenly going to work hard when you get to this world. It has to be already in you. It has to be it has to be deeply entrenched. And so I find myself, I've already lost about 15 pounds since I started this role. And I'm because I'm just going. And people, my first 2 days into office, there was a neighbor who was trying to get the homestead application completed. And she says, I can't get down to City Hall or the district office, but I'm worried about I forgot about the deadline, whatever. And we said, okay, we'll bring you the application. Is that okay with you? Brought her the application, filled it out with her, and she signed it. And she was just so thankful that her councilman came by and helped to do it. And she said to me, she says, well, you're our new councilman. I said, yeah. I said, well, she says, you just got sworn in 2 days ago and you're already, visiting people's homes. I said, yep. And she says, woo, you're going to exhaust yourself before you know it. And I said, yeah. But she says, but that's a good thing. And I think people have a level of expectation, whereas they understand balance is important, and I'll give myself some level of balance, but they also recognize that there's too many issues for someone not to want to be competent enough to create, excellence for these things, the issues, take care of them, but also for someone to kind of take extended period time off. So yeah, that's where I think the qualifications come in.
All right, I'd like to bring in Denise Clayton Murray here on Philadelphia Home.
Hi, council member. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, Denise.
Now, a lot of what you did prior to coming to council was aimed at the city's youth. How do you bring them into council chambers so that we can finally hear from them and find out what they need?
That's great. That's excellent. So I'm also getting better at spotlighting or talking about the things that I've done. And that was something that I didn't do previously, which I now talk to young people. I say, always talk about the things that you do, because people are like, who are you? What did you do? And so now, that's a sense of, but I will say this. So when I was a teenager, which wasn't too long ago, I'm 33 years old. I started an organization. Well, I helped start the Philadelphia Youth Commission. I was on the steering committee for the Philadelphia Youth Commission. And for me, I believe it was intended for the Philadelphia Youth Commission to be the voice of young people in the city of Philadelphia, where we would bring people from every part of the different districts and so forth, and throughout the city to tell us what's important to them. So one thing I would love to do is work more closely with the Philadelphia Youth Commission and helping them be that voice for the youth, but also making the Youth Commission a lot more visible among young people in the city. So that's one thing. The second thing that I'm also really interested in doing during this time in council is working very closely with making sure that wherever event or project that we do in the community, young people are involved. That's something that's really important to me. So when we have community events and community projects and initiatives, we're finding ways to get them involved. How do we do that? I plan to reach out to schools in the district, the rec centers, nonprofit organizations, and create collaboration so that young people can be a part of the process. I also would love to, I think, to get them more involved in the City Hall chamber process is by evoking their voice, bringing their thoughts on legislation and ideas to agenda items that are taking place at City Hall. So I think that, every time I speak going forward, my first two sessions, I just wanted to kind of see the landscape, how things go, make sure I didn't butcher how the voting process, whatever that means. But going into January, I hope to have a little bit more of a feel for how things go, and I'll start to bring their voice into the table, not only just to the table, not just for public comment, but also through our voice. One innovative thing that I think we could do, and that's maybe that's something I could think through if this is even calls, if we could find a way to even get young people to make remarks and comments just all the time when it comes to issues. We're always talking about them when it comes to public safety, but oftentimes we're not involving them in that conversation. And I think that needs to change. But I think City Hall has a wealth of range to help bring young people into this fold. And I think we got to get them civically engaged. You'll be surprised what solutions they have for things.
Okay, now, in terms of one of the big issues that the youth do talk about when we do engage them is the issue of gun violence and the fact that the city we just had our 500th murder earlier today. That's been a big issue in the city for a while. What do you think council could be doing about it that they're not doing about it, and how do you get that process started?
You know what? So I've really been studying and researching what council has already done, what the city has already, leadership and mayor has already done, and I've learned that they have worked already on a lighting program. So this coming year, they're looking to unfold LED lightings throughout the city of Philadelphia. I've learned that City Council has also worked on, from a school safety standpoint, getting cameras throughout every school in district in Philadelphia. There's some, I think, backlog or something going on with making that possible. But I know City Council's work on that. I also know that there's been this continued conversation about working to increase the number of police officers in the community. I know that's happening. So there's still much to learn about what has transpired, because there's some public discourse that's happened, which we know, but there's also private discourse on things that have worked. But I think that the one item that really has to change when it comes to public safety is the following. We have to find a way to increase the number of job opportunities and alternatives for not only our youth, but just adults. And we have to be very encouraging and inspiring to have them take on jobs so they can have something better to do than to resort to crime. what I imagine is this, something that Leon Sullivan did, which is really strong. We recognize that there are some troubled youth. There's some troubled folks in their 20s. I guess they're relatively youth as well. And they are continually put in the system for small minor crimes, right? Which turn into bigger crimes later on, by the way. I think that we need to immediately adopt a system where, as a part of that small minor crime, that we say, you now have to be a part of this nonprofit program for the next some odd years. Because we just can't take the risk of you becoming a mentorship program or some sort of program that can excite them, help them grow. We can't take the risk of you not having a village that's going to help you stay in a positivity. I think that's a new idea that I'm willing to explore. And then there's also another idea I think is really important. This also comes from my grassroots nonprofit hat that creating these amazing programs that transform is having a young person, not a young person, if an adult, for example, it gets caught with a catalytic converter, situation, they took one from someone's car, small minor crime. We can say, you know what, you have a choice. You can either, like almost some of Leon Sullivan's program, you can either go to jail and have a record, or you can pick up this trade, this job, and you can get trained in something. You can do that for the next semi-years. We have to start becoming more innovative with getting people that are going to probably commit crime over and over again, opportunities to do something. I'll rather put more funding into doing something like that, because if we can catch them early on, we can prevent them from being greater criminals. Yes, we're going to need greater monitoring of that particular problem, but I promise you, once somebody knows that they got to show up to somewhere every single day, or they're going to go to jail, they're going to show up to that program and that job opportunity, and it's going to be like, yeah, I got to go because they don't have to feel like they don't feel like it's not a cool thing to do. They're going to show up because they know that they could tell their boys, hey, I just don't want to go to prison. I got to be there for my family. Then they'll act like they don't like it. But if we have a high quality program, they'll like it. It's going to take a little while, but they're going to start liking it, and it becomes an alternative for them. It's something that we haven't explored, but I think is an option for ourselves and our city that I would love to see how we can, present, to our city, the city of Philadelphia.
Now, as someone who's coming from the nonprofit world, how do you think nonprofits how will you be that bridge between nonprofits and city council? Because I don't know if council does a lot with nonprofits.
Yeah, so that's and I think that's where my unique experience comes in. Whereas, I know there are some council members who have worked with nonprofits or worked in nonprofits, but I think that they also was coupled with they worked in government for a long time too. So it's a little different. I am for me, the smaller nonprofits, even the big nonprofits are fine, but the small, just finding ways to help people understand that our nonprofit programs actually make a difference, especially some of the smaller ones. And we also have to start evaluating some of the programs that we do fund in the city of Philadelphia, and see what type of quality service is it really giving. Because I look at, Teen Sharp, I look at Youth Action, I look at, other entities, and they're incredibly changing lives, but we're not bringing them to the fold as a solutions and players. So whenever someone comes up to me and says, hey, Councilman Phillips, let me tell you about my nonprofit. I'm like, yeah, I want to hear about it. Oh, tell me about this program. I want to hear about it. And sometimes I'll say, this is great. How do you, and I'll ask them a little bit more questions about their impact, and they'll say, I'll give some more advice on how they can get stronger, and I'll have a conversation with them how they can get stronger. Sometimes I might say, this is really excellent. How can I tag team, right? It really depends, but the whole idea is to make sure that whatever someone is doing for our community, that we're finding ways to connect them to the community, because you can't have too many do-gooders in society. You just got to find a way to. Now, there's a possibility for some do-gooders to merge, because you're going to have too many infiltration of nonprofits, so they could do the same work. But I don't think there's too much. But I am going to be the nonprofit voice, because I do believe that nonprofits have a decent role in city government. It's just got to be high quality. We have to fund them, and we have to support them.
And I have one last question.
Yeah.
As someone for whom this is your first foray into electoral politics, unless you count becoming a committee person, which you do have to run for,
Right.
how big has an adjustment has that part been? Because what I've talked to activists and nonprofit leaders in the past who have, run for things, and they're like, "You mean you're around this stuff all the time?" How has that been? I guess, how have you made that adjustment?
Well, I think that for me, because I've been an executive in a nonprofit, I'm used to organizing people and leadership within for things that make sense. Like, for example, our office just recently did away with the word constituent, and now we call people neighbors, because it creates a familiarity with folks. Our office also came up with a 100-day plan. We're most likely going to have like a view book type of situation of all the work that we've done in the community. We want to be able to help people understand better, create better initiatives on how people can actively learn about city services. So I think the transition from nonprofit to city government is actually seamless in that particular way, because nonprofit people who do high quality nonprofit work know how to create strong, I keep using this word systems, but we know how to create strong initiatives that make a difference in the lives of folks. Like, for example, I noticed that, neighbors would come in. Sometimes they would be folks, I ain't hear back from you. And I'm like, okay, so, all right, how do we create a strong system on follow-up, right? And then also, how do we create a familiar environment? So now when we have people come into our office, we're having conversations on how do we say hello? How do we welcome people? How do we say goodbye to people? We want to create it to be a family, right? Where people want to use this office as a place of service. So and then also just like even how we take notes and how we, record things, how we, what's our system for, going out into the neighborhood and actually visiting something when an issue just seems like we don't understand. So I think nonprofit executives know how to create, transformational programs that will work for the city in a way that is different from corporate, right? Corporate definitely knows how to make sure that there is, I would say, corporate government. Sometimes they'll know how to make sure how we do HR practices, how do we, handle, all types of behavioral issues. It's there's a level of procedural things that corporate and government folks know how to do, but the nonprofit people are really good at putting the level of the corporate side of it, but putting that level of care within that field too. So I think that seamless transition works well. However, what nonprofit people like me have a hard time understanding is in city is bureaucracy. We have a harder time adjusting to bureaucracy because we're used to finding ways to get over red tape so that we can be successful, right? And when I say bureaucracy, it's more like all the different channels that you have to loop over sometimes to get things done for our neighbors. And I think that's something that's different. That's much of a transition. And then also our nonprofit people, we're used to selling the students, the people that we work with, the clientele, whatever. We're used to selling them. We're not used to selling us, right? Whereas people in government are used to, in this particular, who are always been elected and so forth, are used to selling themselves in more ways than one. And so even with myself, it's like an adjustment where I've had to talk about my values, my traits, and what I offer and my skill sets all the time. Normally, we're used to doing that during an interview, but now we do that constantly. But, our hope is always that people will just see see the work that we do and be able to say, okay, this is a person that really means what they say. And then lastly, I think the hard adjustment for us, and that's something that has been difficult for me, is the politics of things, right? I think politics is a really difficult adjustment for us because normally if we talk to Todd and we have a conversation with Todd, and Todd says we're going to put this initiative together come March, and we kind of like sat down, talked it through, emailed about it. It happens. If we make it happen, right? That may not always be the case in this world. Whereas you have to recognize, you have to almost like, is this really going to happen? Or are you not going to cross me? This is really, whoa, like you've been selling me, you're not selling me. So it's a little different because it's a trusting relationship because people in the nonprofit world tend to have, you only get hired in the nonprofit world if people can tell that you have a do-gooder heart. Whereas in this world, you could come off as having a do-gooder heart as a facade, just because you're trying to, but have no record. You have no record of doing do-gooder work, right? But because you come off of a facade, you can find a way to be involved with it. But you have to, in this world, which is different for us, we have to really discern who's really about the community or who's really trying to get a come up. And that's the difficulty for us in the nonprofit world when we're transitioning to politics, because we're just like, we want to see the good in people, but now we have to become more thoughtful about who to trust with the work that we're trying to accomplish as leaders in the community.
Okay, well, thank you for taking the time to join us, and I'm going to give you back to Larry McGlynn, and you're listening to Hall Monitor on WPPM 106.5.
All right. Thank you very much, Denise. And Councilman, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Larry. Appreciate you, and appreciate you, Denise, for all the work that you all are doing to help us amplify our voice and have our neighbors understand what we're doing here in City Council.
All right. We'd like to thank Councilmember Phillips for being with us. So Denise, tell us what you've got coming up on Friday.
Okay. What I've got coming up on Friday is a look back at 2022. 2023 is literally a week or two away. And there's a lot that we're going to have to think about there. But I kind of want to take a look back at the ups, the downs, the midterms, who we lost, who we lost in 2022, and just to give like an overview of what 2022 was all about, what we can expect in 2023, and just kind of a wrap up.
And there we go. And a lot has happened this year.
Oh yeah,
and a lot.
2022 was busy.
Mm-hmm. And 2023 is going to be even busier, I think.
Yeah.
Mayor's race.
I'm trying not to think about that, because that's all we're going to be thinking about for the next few months. So I'm just trying to spend my Christmas holidays without thinking about Alan Dom in a barbershop.
Right. Because we're gonna have plenty of time to think about that in the spring. Mm-hmm. So what we'd like to do right now is play the conclusion of our interview with Councilmember David O that we began 2 weeks ago. So here's our interview with Councilmember David O. I'd like to bring Denise Timer here.
Hi, Councilman. Thank you for joining us. This is different from witness relocation, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So how is it different? Because for some people, they're hearing what you're talking about and they're saying, well, doesn't witness relocation handle that?
So no, because witness relocation, the word witness means this is a person who's going to testify in court. This is a person who has information about a crime, which is a public offense, that there is a prosecutor's office, there's law enforcement, and there's a reason why They are focused on someone who has committed this crime. It's all part of being a witness to the police, law enforcement, the feds, the DEA, and coming to court. But someone getting shot at is a victim of a crime, but they're not a witness to the crime, and there's no testimony. They're just being shot at, right? In a sense, they haven't been shot yet. They may have been shot at. That's all a crime. But there's supposed to be a level of public safety from law enforcement and the city and whatnot that would, basically call 911 and say, listen, someone shot at my house, and everyone comes out, they do the ballistics, they search around, all that. That's kind of like what people imagine would happen. But here out in the open, the victims are being shot at, and there isn't a level of response, and that is a failure. So what we're left with is we have to get them out of that neighborhood.
Okay, so this is focusing on the victims, the people who have been shot or are being shot at in these neighborhoods who want to move away.
Right.
Okay, so since that is the case, and rightfully so, that if money is being allocated for that and it's not going to that, something needs to be done. Have you talked to your colleagues on council about what that something should be? Because if you're giving this organization money, giving the managing director money, and he claims that it's being used for anything other than what it was appropriated for, then that's a problem. What is council willing to do to solve that problem?
So that is the question that has yet to be determined. I think that we have a process where a transfer ordinance funds many good things, and it's good and right to fund those things. Let's say the $500,000 I would withhold from being sent to the managing director's office for this purpose because it's not being used. But at the same time, it's just a number. In other words, the money may move, the number may not move. So the power that we have is to not transfer anything, like to get the attention of the administration, to let them know we want immediate results. But now some good things will be delayed. Some good folks may suffer. But the question is it worth it when people are, their lives are being threatened? And it is part of something new that we have to respond to. We have to have a new process. So for me, I put in a motion that we table, the approval of the transfer ordinance. However, I didn't get a second. And so that motion is ineffective. What will we do next? But I do think, based on everything that occurred, the fact that it's been a year, the fact that we have multiple meetings, the fact that we identified how to solve the problem, the fact that this money was later said to be moved to an entity that does not do this, and more money has been created, I think that we will have to resolve among ourselves to take strong action, but that's yet to be determined.
Now, the Office of the Victim's Advocate would probably be the most logical place for this. And I'm also familiar with the work of Emir. I did some stories not too long ago, and they were talking about how they had to give back a grant that they had gotten from the state because they couldn't get matching funds to do just what you're talking about.
Yes.
Have you talked to them since?
Yes.
And what are they telling you?
So, yes, this was all, we talked about this. They need the funds. They're moving people on their own. We need to move these people. We have $500,000 to move the people that we're talking about to vet and ensure that they are actually the subjects of deadly violence. And then Amir has its own process, but we want to do this. And so they are confounded by the fact that they've ended their program. They have no funding. So they're not moving anybody right now. 500,000 has been moved someplace else for some other reason. And according to the administration, they're saying most of it is sitting there. Well, why? Why don't you move it to where it's supposed to be so we could do this work? And I think we have to gain the public confidence, at least that we are responding, we're trying to do something, and that we will get somewhere. We have to get somewhere to make people safe. But this thing about $1 million, the only thing that came up in the is we're going to hire a specialist. Well, that's not what that money is for. You don't need to hire a specialist. You're supposed to be able to do it. And if you can't, we have people who have already built up a process of doing this. So again, I'm getting no answers that are satisfactory. I believe my colleagues are concerned, but I really think that this is a thing that it just falls on the public to say we are outraged by this. And we will not let this go. You know, this is indicative of many things that may be occurring that just don't get that much attention. And this might have been something that just nobody cares about. But it's gotten some attention, and we should not let it go. We should make sure that, you know, that we get this process right, that we move these people. It's easy enough to tell the people are moved. It's easy enough to tell they're being shot at. It's easy enough to tell. All these things are easily verified.
Okay. One last question. One of the problems that witness relocation has traditionally had in Philadelphia is the fact that Philadelphia is a city filled with people who have never left their neighborhood and have no intention of ever leaving their neighborhood. There's probably some of the same thing going on in terms of victims of crime. This is my neighborhood and I'm not moving.
Well,
what do we do for those people? I mean, is there anything we can do for those people?
Well, the thing we should be doing is we should be providing the professional services that their taxes pay for. We shouldn't have people that have to leave their neighborhoods. But the reality is that we do. And I'll tell you that nobody that I've spoken to does not want to get the heck out of there. They would like to be gone yesterday. They have nothing in that neighborhood. They're leaving their house. They're leaving everything behind. They just want to get out with their lives, with their children. They just want to leave. There's nothing there for them. And when I've spoken to, you know, the mothers, you know, they don't want to be moved anywhere near their neighborhood. They want to be in the opposite end of the city or across the county line. And so one of the problems we have with, when we have like a witness, for example, or maybe someone who's been a victim and they don't want to leave because they don't feel that threatened. But these people are beyond the point of they don't feel that threatened. They are like afraid for their lives. They're nervous. They can't sleep. You know, some of them are, the drug addicted, alcohol, other things that go along with the trauma, the depression, and everything else. It's not good for the family. It's not good for the relationship with the children. The children resent it. They act out. It sets up a whole lot of things that, so what's come up is, well, we need all this wraparound services. My point is, well, maybe we do, but right now, you can't even move these people out. So they do want to be relocated. And what we can do, I believe, we can provide them housing on like a year basis. They do have to get themselves, acclimated, get themselves together. We have to get their kids in school, do all that. but they have to get, you know, their lives together. I don't know that there's, you know, people talk about all kinds of money. I don't know that there's there. And from what I've seen, we haven't even seen a penny of $500,000, let alone we're talking about millions of dollars. So the challenge for me is, let's get the money to the people who need to be moved and they want to move. And then when we're successful, we will begin to find other people, and we will have a sense from all of them. Honestly, the people who are doing these shootings, they're identifiable. I could name them right now, but we will need to identify them. We will need to surveil them. We need to arrest them, to prevent them from doing this in a neighborhood and setting a trend. Crime imitates crime. And it is something where if we don't address it, we have an entire community that doesn't want to come out of their houses. That don't, you know, you never know nowadays what little thing you did or nothing that results in dramatic retaliation.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. I'll give you back to Larry McGlynn.
Yes, thank you.
And you're listening to Hall Monitor on WPPM.
Thanks, Denise. Councilman, I just have two last questions for you. What should somebody do if they feel they don't feel safe or they find themselves in this kind of situation now?
Well, I would advise them, you have to overcome your cynicism, your doubt, whatever. Yes, you call the police, call your elected representatives, tell them, and don't count on, like you told someone and help comes right away. Call everybody, tell everybody. And certainly you can call my office. We do care about this issue. Let us know. I am not the person in charge. A lot of people don't understand what it is to be an at-large council person. I'm not in charge of the police. I'm not in charge of the schools. I don't tell people what to do. Introduce bills and resolutions. I can facilitate. Different types of programs to help our school district, whatever I can do, and other people will try to do the same thing. But we you know, you cannot just avoid addressing this situation. And you know, sadly, you know, it's you know, the reality is I'll give one story. A mother was, you know, she was told where to find her other son. And in fact, they did find him dead. Like, you know, this sounds very fanciful, like it's some movie. It's not. Like, this is happening. You know, they're after someone, you know, they communicate. I think someone sent a picture of where to find the body. And that's what you know, like for conventional wisdom, oh, they don't want their photograph taken. They're afraid because there's a video camera. They are sending photographs. They're sending.
We would like to thank Councilmember O for being with us, and also Councilmember Phillips for joining us in the program for the first time, hopefully the first many times. Denise, thank you as always. And
thank you.
We'll see everybody next week on Hall Monitor.
Happy holidays, everyone.